It feels like we've been waiting for Vulkan to be fully ready and finished in Star Citizen for forever. But we do have an update from Ali Brown, the graphics wizard man. He has spoken in Spectrum and he has hinted that there are changes coming. And also, it's not just Vulkan, we've also got some optimization stuff happening and also some changes to upscaling. First, let's just go back a couple of months and see what he said in the last update, and then we'll look at what he's just said. So at the end of May, he said that Squadron 42 has been using Vulkan by default and it's been going well, but it has uncovered a load of stability stuff. And so they've been focused on that, getting that done. And he did say here that moving code between the projects, fully testing it and stabilizing it for public release can take many weeks. And he basically says he doesn't want to guess when it's going to be ready. But this latest update does hint that we are moving closer. He said yesterday on Spectrum, following on from my previous message on the topic, we've been integrating the latest renderer and other tech from Squadron 42 over to SC's main branch, and we're about to begin testing and bug fixing. But don't get too excited just yet. It can take quite some time to get to the patch stream, and then an actual public release. All depends on how successful that testing is. This is all quite complicated, but Jared did on a Star Citizen Live actually talk about some of this stuff in the past. So I've chopped it up a bit, and here is what he said. And this gives us some insight into how moving things between projects and all the different branches they've got kind of works.
And every patch, every build, comes from a place that we call game dev. Now, game dev works on, there's a couple different layers. There's a couple different persistent environments to development. So we're gonna draw some lines here. Game dev is where everything exists. Game dev is where code and asset come together. It's like the earth beneath your feet. Everything grows from it and everything goes back to it when it's done. So features are developed in what are called feature streams. These are just three that I'm picking up and coming to mind right now. Squadron 42 is essentially just an enormous feature stream. While they're working in these other environments, occasionally they check things in. So cargo will be like, that thing works, we really like that, so we'll check that in. And say salvage, we'll check something in. And these things will go to game dev.
And so from what Ali Brown is saying here, what's happening effectively is that the work that's been done on Vulkan and all these other bits that they're talking about on Squadron 42 is now being moved across to the Star Citizen main game dev branch. And as he goes on to say, there's a lot of work from this stage to actually end up in a patch. Jared does explain this in the episode. I'd recommend going and watching that, the full thing. I'll link it in the description. So it's not as though this is really, really close, but it is actually now heading towards being released and into our hands. Ali continues to say what's included. He said this will include major changes to Vulkan, some upscaling changes, and both CPU and GPU optimizations. First of all, the Vulkan stuff. Is this now multi-threaded Vulkan, the thing that we've been asking for ages, the kind of last bit of the Vulkan piece of the puzzle before maybe they turn it on as the main render in the game? We don't know. And probably only when this actually comes out will we actually find out. But my suspicion is that if they've moved it across from Squadron 42, well, it's probably the stuff that they want to release Squadron with. So I assume this is now a fully kind of featured version of the Vulkan renderer, and hopefully we'll see some improvements in performance. Like I've been saying for a while now, Vulkan isn't going to be the silver bullet for performance in this game like we kind of thought it was going to be a few years ago. The render thread isn't really the main issue for Star Citizen performance. Now it's the main thread, all the logic and stuff that the game has to process. And so I'm not expecting Vulkan itself to really crazily improve any sort of performance. I mean, maybe in certain scenarios or maybe in certain setups, but I think that's not really what it's for. Vulkan really allows them to do other stuff, feature stuff, maybe the global illumination stuff that they go on to talk about in a minute, but it isn't going to be a sudden boost in performance on its own. But hopefully it is stable and it is going to slowly become the version of the renderer that they use as a default, because at the moment some patches you can use Vulkan and it kind of works, but on the whole and for the majority of people, actually just sticking to DX11 as it currently stands is the better and more stable option. But hopefully this is the end of that. Hopefully we are now starting to get to the point where they start to phase out DX11, which has always been the plan. The next bit he talks about is the upscaling changes. Now, This is potentially pretty exciting. In his previous load of posts that he did back in May, somebody asked, is there any new information on DLSS 4? So this is the transformer model, the thing that I've done some testing on that did work in the NVIDIA app. You could override the DLSS settings and get this latest version, but then it stopped working. And not really sure why. You can still potentially force it on by going down a different route, but for now, it's not easy to get it on. And so what's going on here? And Ali Brown said in May, it's implemented on our internal main branch of SC, but this branch hasn't yet been tested, so I can't say which patch it will make it into. And then a follow-up question, are you referring to DLSS for upscaling or DLSS FrameGen? And Ali says, DLSS for upscaling. There is no native FrameGen supported at present. FSR remains unchanged for now. I've not taken a look recently, but my recollection was that it's more dev time to support FSR 3 on D3D, DX11, at the same time as FSR 4 on Vulkan, which is not supported on D3D. But I could be wrong there. So potentially what might happen here is that we might get the latest version of DLSS 4. When he talks about upscaling changes, I really hope that they've got the latest version of DLSS in. That would be great. But back in May, it sounded unlikely that was also going to mean FSR 4, the latest version of AMD's upscaler. If it does pan out like that and we don't get an update to FSR, that's a real shame, because for anybody on AMD's graphics cards, FSR currently, the version we've got in the game right now, is so far behind DLSS. And the new version of FSR is just very much an improvement compared to the version we've got in Star Citizen. So we really do want CRG to get the latest version of FSR into the game, but based on this, maybe that won't happen at this point. And then he talks about GPU and CPU optimizations, though he does say that some larger optimizations will come slightly later, but that is really positive news. So again, Vulkan itself might not bring massive performance improvements, but hopefully some of the work that they've been doing in isolation, not on the main branch, hopefully some of the stuff they've been doing for Squadron in terms of optimizing and performance stuff, hopefully as they bring that across, hopefully that sees a bigger improvement jump that we've just not really seen this year. Again, I've covered this recently and we looked at how the patches have progressed this year, and it's a bit underwhelming at this stage. So hopefully these changes, whenever they drop, I doubt they'll be maybe as soon as 4.3, but maybe we're looking further into the year, maybe to the August or September patch. Who knows exactly when they'll drop, but this hopefully is a point where we'll see some better performance. And in a year where they've said they're going to do that, yeah, hopefully this is really a time where performance for people on lower end systems, but also on really high end systems, can really see the game performing a bit more like a real game rather than what is effectively a bit of a messy kind of alpha tech demo situation from a performance point of view, at least. So this is really exciting, and I'm really hoping for big changes coming with this, but I will test all that stuff, don't you worry. The last thing that he mentions is that GEI, so global illumination, will unfortunately not be included, as that needs more optimization and is missing a few features for SC that Squadron 42 didn't need. So he talks about tint system, and there's another post below that talks about what that is and why that is, but that's a shame. I wasn't really expecting global illumination to come across anytime soon, but the fact that they're not actually that far away is exciting. And yes, again, we always talk about this. I know not everybody cares about ray tracing stuff, but this is effectively CRG's way to light the whole of the game without having to individually light areas. If they can get global illumination working well, and they have talked about having a software solution as well as a hardware ray trace solution as well, this is positive and it's a move forward. And again, you might not care about it, but this is needed. This is another thing that they've got to tick off as they move this project forward. So it's not coming now, but hopefully it's not that far behind. So there we go. There are lots of updates coming in terms of performance, which is really exciting for this game. Again, this year of playability, part of that is supposed to mean better performance. And this stuff, Vulkan combined with the optimization stuff and some hopefully really exciting changes to the upscaler, they're going to be hopefully a really good and exciting thing to get stuck into. So yes, I'll be testing all this stuff, and that will do it for this one.